Hi everyone, I thought I'd take some time to record a short video following my hair transplant, which has now been 2 weeks tomorrow actually. And so I'll give you a bit of an update in terms of how things are going, but also respond to some of the questions that you've sent across to me via Facebook messages and also Instagram as well. Now, so today's topic is predominantly going to be around, or topics are going to be predominantly around pain, scabbing, additional supplement costs and clinic I used, etc. So the first, let's go for how painful was the hair transplant. Now, the actual hair transplant in itself wasn't particularly painful per se, in that having had the anesthesia injections, it kind of numbed it in preparation for 40 odd injections on the back of my head, which I think I'd estimated, but I genuinely think it was somewhere around that region. Now, of course, uncomfortable, right? You can't expect to undergo hair transplant surgery without having anesthesia, but you can opt for a reduced pain, as I'd like to call it, not a pain-free anesthesia. Now, in terms of pain, I'm going to be completely honest here. I've suffered from significant sort of almost excruciating stabbing, sort of sharp pain throughout the day and in the night. So I get up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, just feel really tough, 10 out of 10, excruciating pain. And having done my research, it's clear that there have been a specific cohort of people who have and continue to have some level of nerve damage off the back of the surgery, and your risk or exposure to that, whilst I'm not an expert in this field, from what I've researched, your exposure to that increases based on the number of grafts you have extracted. Now, clearly I had 4,200 grafts extracted. Now, I did start with having 2 times 200 milligrams times 3, so 3 times a day, to numb the pain that I was experiencing. It started around day 4, 5, when sort of the anesthesia from the surgery and everything else had settled, and I'm led to believe that the nerves start to rebuild, and that's the bit at which you feel quite a significant amount of pain. I'm glad to say that it's tapering off a little bit, so I'm not waking up in the middle of the night desperate for my ibuprofen, but I am sort of finding that it does pop up every so often, and I'm sort of clearly taking my painkillers, ibuprofen in this case, at times when I experience the pain, right? So funnily enough, I bumped into someone yesterday who was at the barbershop. So I went to take my son for a haircut, and the chap that was sat next to me talked to me about how they experienced a very similar type of pain for about 9 weeks. I hope mine won't be as long, but it's clearly something that's something that I feel is tapering off. So fingers crossed, we'll be all good. Scabbing. So was a question that I was asked. So about 6, 7, 8 days in, the implanted area began to scab. I'll show you a picture now. And as you can see on that image, there's certainly some cracking, and that's because the skin has become dry. I did apply salt spray every half an hour, maybe hour on some days, every hour on some days, to help keep the area moist. And the scabbing, thankfully, has now reduced completely. So on the 10th day to the 13th day, the request is that when you put your moisturizing foam on, which I talk about on the previous video, and then you put on the shampoo that they provide you, that you rub it in to the area that has the scabbing. So between day 10 and 13, you really want to see all those scabs gone. So I can show you now. You will be able to see clearly that there are no scabs whatsoever. I'll turn to the left. You'll see the same on the left hand side. That's the rear, and the donor area, as you can see, is healing really well. And on the left hand side over here, also healing really well. And so there's a few bits on my top there. That's not good. Maybe some dry scalp potentially. I don't know. Funnily enough, when I went to the barber yesterday, they had a look over my head, and they were blown away, sort of saying that, you know, the number of people that they've seen have hair transplant surgery and it hasn't looked as clean. You know, and he was really, really impressed, especially because I'm sort of 13, 14 days in. So yeah, no, I'm pleased with the progress that I'm seeing. I can't say that I'm comfortable and being so bold, but look, I never was bold before. I had a reasonably good head of hair. I just wanted extra density. But yeah, we're getting there. I'm sure at some stage in the next few weeks there'll be a bit of shedding where I'll lose it, and then there'll be regrowth, as is the case often with hair transplant surgery. So I'm ready for it. So the additional supplements. So I have started from day 10 taking or retaking multivitamins. I also take saw palmetto, biotin, and omega-3 fish oil in capsule form, which I took prior to anyway. Now, if you want to get yourself some, if you're undergoing surgery, or if you are not undergoing surgery, because I hear that it's supposed to be good for your hair health, your skin health anyway, then you can by all means just go into the description of this video and then click those links, and you'll be taken directly to those products that I've purchased for myself. So those are the additional supplements. So what cost here? You know, I paid 2,200 euros. That's around 1,850, 1,900 pounds, which I think is really reasonable comparing to, you know, UK prices being at the 7,000-8,000 pounds. I stayed, and that included accommodation, by the way, not the flights, but the flights were like 180 odd pounds, but the accommodation as well. So the accommodation was a 5-star hotel. So mine was the Renaissance. Yours might be different, clearly, depending upon which clinic you book. I booked with Dr. Cynic, and that's the preferred hotel. And it wasn't Dr. Cynic that done the transplant, it was his sister and some of his nursing staff as well. And you know, it's a well-established clinic, and they provide you with transfers from the hotel, from the airport to the hotel, and to the clinic, pre sort of consultation and for the surgery, etc. So it's a well-oiled machine in terms of experience-wise for what you pay. It's a really good service. Now, in terms of additional costs, so I decided to stay an additional day prior to the suggested time that I needed to be there. So I got a full day in Istanbul. I'll show you a video now. This is the Spice Bazaar. You know, it just gives you an example of how beautiful and how culturally rich Istanbul is. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it, you know, thoroughly enjoyed it. That I would highly recommend. So I wouldn't recommend going, you know, putting out a day or two after your hair transplant surgery, because, you know, personally I didn't want to be walking around with a band and bandages, etc. So I sort of went and enjoyed the city beforehand, and then you know, went for my hair transplant surgery the next day and rested it the night of, and then the next day after that I flew back home, which was preferred. If I'd had an option to do another couple of days beforehand, if I had the flexibility, diary permitting, I'd have done so, hands down. Yeah, so that kind of covers the element of cost and clinic, but also additional costs associated. Now, for those of you who are going for the additional day, you'll need a couple of £100 maybe, because the lira isn't as strong as it was previously. So your money goes a long way, but just be savvy. So you are going to those places where, you know, they're not totally ripping you off being a tourist, and just be aware, you know, a lot of these places haggle and so on and so forth. So look, appreciate this is not a travel video, but this is more about hair transplant. So hopefully you'll find your way with that, and there's lots of other YouTube videos which can give you a sort of breakdown of Istanbul and why it's so great and where you go, etc., etc. But clearly, if you want to reach out to me and ask me the same, I'm very happy to help. So what else? So yeah, no, that kind of covers most of it. Like I said, you know, I'm getting there. I'm hoping that in the next few weeks the pain will have subsided, and I'll give you an update on progress as to how far it's gone. But thank you so much for listening. Again, any questions, reach out to me on whichever channel, be it Facebook or Instagram, or just leave a comment down below and I'll respond in good time. Thanks for listening.